Ben,
Jacob.
you made me 2 hours late, and so Donnie's mad at me, and
Yeah.
we're streaming at the same time as Lance.
Oh no. Our
Ah,
schedule is all.
it's all your fault. Oh, right, it's all my fault. I'm sorry. Yeah, unforeseen circumstances. Uh,
Sounds like you're some kind of in a rally. Maybe are you in a rally? Is that why you're late? With your voice is like you're shouting at something. Somewhere.
really? My voice? No. I mean, no. I've just been running around doing things, trying to make my apartment presentable for. Uh, I'm having a little birthday party on Saturday. You're welcome to join us.
I wish a night trip will be nice.
How do you like Karen's painting?
I was about to say that looks beautiful.
I just put it up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is really really nice.
Okay. I think this is where we left off.
Yeah, I was looking at it. One thing that I forgot is like I didn't do the summary. I didn't look at the summary of the last.
You didn't ask ChatGPT to.
Well, I just did, but I didn't have the time to. What it can't do is just unconsciously just feed my brain that information.
Yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so just off the top of my head, so the Rebbe is explaining that the previous Rebbe explains V'Atah Tetzaveh, right? So it says, first it says to Moses, and you shall command. Whereas this is the only place in the Torah where it makes it sound like like Moses is the one doing the commanding.
Mm-hmm.
Second, it says that the olives shall be crushed for oil, right?
Right.
So we're talking about this concept of being crushed, right? And how that relates to the fact that it doesn't say laha'ir, it says lama'or, right? Not to cause light, but for it to be light, lama'or.
To facilitate it.
I would say more as to be, yeah, well, okay.
Enable it.
I guess facilitate. I think it's more an accomplishment as opposed to potential.
Mm-hmm.
I think. And lastly, why is it that the shemen, the oil, is brought to Moses as opposed to being brought to the high priest Aaron, right? Aaron's the one who's going to light the menorah. So why is it that Moses is doing the commanding, and he's telling them to bring this oil back to him, right? And one of the things that he explained was regarding Mordechai and Moses, how these, in one sense, the Torah was given during the time of Moses, because that's when Dor Dea was at its highest, and
they experienced the
right,
godliness.
Godliness was at its greatest revelation.
Mm-hmm.
But in a different sense, Mordechai and Esther, when they were in fact in the time of the greatest Hester Panim, that in some sense is the greatest spiritual height, right? Because that's when it's not through all these revelations in fact, it's in this greatest darkness that they are actually accepting Torah upon themselves.
So I have something that might derail the conversation.
Please.
And might be, and it could be semi-heretical. But isn't there? So I'm just curious about what about the concept of the fact that I know there's I don't know if how articulate this thesis is, but about this idea of God moving away or fading away as time goes by. Isn't this kind of like the way that we're talking about now kind of fits that particular hypothesis or theory?
Well, I mean, there is this concept of Yeridat Hadorot, right?
Mm-hmm.
That in each progressive generation, it gets darker and darker, and we move further and further away from the ultimate revelation, which was at Sinai. And in a sense, I mean, things are even darker now than they were during the time of Mordechai and Esther, right? At least during the time of Mordechai and Esther, we had prophets, we had these basically open miracles of, I mean, as they were far more open miracles than anything we experience today. Yeah. But that's part of, I mean, the progression ultimately is, Yeridat Hadorot, and it gets darker and darker until it finally will begin to the dawn comes upon us.
Yeah. So I guess maybe it's a framing. Just a framing of like maybe people that from one, like, you know, one of those theories could be the frame is about how that is actually a form of liberation, of like we're getting more, we can do more of our own, and that kind of gives us more freedom of choice, and kind of like the ability to do more. But the perspective that we're here is we're not. That's not the purpose of. That's not the purpose of the Yeridat Dorot, isn't it? Because I mean, the idea is that there is Yerida, but there's
zichuch. Yeah, the world, right? So mitzvot are nitzchi, right? It says in the Ten Commandments, I will visit the sins onto the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, and thousands of generations of those who love me, right? Mm-hmm. Because there is an inherent unequalness between sins and mitzvot, right? Between failing to do that which God wants us to do and doing that which God wants us to do. Mm-hmm. In that, everything that is of God is in fact infinite. So God's will is infinite, and doing God's will has an infinite capacity, right? Whereas sheker and ein lo reglaim, right? Mm-hmm. And met is something that my little thing I like to put in, right? Sheker ein lo reglaim, and met is a davar nitzchi, right? So truth and mitzvot and godliness are things which have an eternal existence. Mm-hmm. And so even though in Donnie loves the graphic, this is the first time you've seen that graphic. I pull it up all the time, Donnie. You obviously don't watch my channel enough as much as you should.
Might need to revoke that VIP.
What?
Might need to revoke that VIP status.
Yeah, seriously. So things that like any mitzvah that you do, it's a davar nitzchi. It's a davar nitzchi. That's like amazing, right? Mm-hmm. And any sin that you do is hevel, right? It's something that ultimately is worthless, right? Now that doesn't mean that it's fine to sin. It just means that the difference between them is so huge, right? That even in Yeridat HaDorot, the fact is, and it's interesting. I mean, when you look at it, the most recent Siyum Hashas had well over 100,000 people who made a Siyum on the entirety of the Talmud Bavli. 100,000 people, right? In all of Jewish history, I am not sure more than 60 years ago if 100,000 people had ever studied the entire Babylonian Talmud. Because it's not like everybody had a Talmud in their house. And certainly they didn't have a Talmud shir in their house, right? Like, so when you look at the facts of it, right? I mean, the number of Jews for the first time since Galut Bavel in 2,500 years, a majority of the world's Jews live in Eretz Israel, right? And the fact is, when you live in Eretz Israel, even when you're a Chiloni, it's a lot easier to, by mistake, keep kosher than it is, right? To even try to keep kosher. Like, even if you're trying to keep kosher, you might not keep as much kosher in America as when you're not even trying and you live in Eretz Israel and everything just happens to be kosher. Right? So, in a certain sense, right? There's a ma'ala to this door, right? Everybody has all the Jewish holidays off, and the people who don't have Jewish holidays off in Eretz Israel, they have jobs where at least it's permitted for them, right? To be working on the Sabbath. So, I mean, when you look at it in a certain sense, we've never had Jews as observant of the Torah as exists today. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. But there's still this aspect of Yeridat HaDorot. There's still this, I mean, you just said this darkness.
Yeah. I mean, Rahmana Litzlan, we have Jews who go to Beit Avodah Zarah and sit there and listen to a mamish peselmacher. Like, mamish, he's a peselmacher, right? Posel pesalim. That's his job, right? Talking about Torah.
And Jews eat cheeseburger and call other rabbis to come over.
Having a ham and cheese sandwich in a church, right?
And he was wearing a tallis, that's true.
Were you wearing a tallis? Oh, no, that was the galach. That wasn't the posel pesalim. Yeah, the galach was wearing a tallis. Yeah. And it was a Mahadran tallis too. I made it myself. What can I say? We live in weird times. We live in very weird times.
That is true.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Weiter?
What do you say?
Weiter.
Yeah.
Weiter is do they use that in modern Hebrew? It's Yiddish for not yalla, but like further.
Further. Kadima.
Yeah. Kadima. Yeah. Kadima.
Lechazeh.
Okay.
Go for it.
So Okay.
Or I can do it too.
Well, your choice.
Um,
I'll start.
okay.
I could tell the hesitation.
I was trying to see if there's any Yiddish or Kabbalistic stuff here.
There's no Yiddish, but I'm seeing a lot of difficult Roshei Tevot at least. Okay. ועל פי זה יש לבאר קשר וסדר העניינים בהמאמר. Right? So now he's going to explain how all of these things tie together. בביאור הפסוק V'Atah Tetzaveh gomer, right? In explaining this pasuk, and you shall command, שבתחילה מבאר את הפירוש ד'V'Atah Tetzaveh את בני ישראל. First, he explains what it means, and you shall command the children of Israel. שמשה הוא מקשר ומחבר את בני ישראל עם אור אין סוף. Right? That the word tetzaveh comes from tzavta, from connection. So when it says V'Atah Tetzaveh, you will command, it means you will connect and you will combine, I guess, Bnei Israel with the infinite light, Baruch Hu. Al Yedei Shehu Zanu Mefarnes et Ha'emunah. Through the fact that he provides and nourishes them in their faith, emunah. V'acharei zeh mevayer shegam ro'ei Israel shebachol dor. Right. So we had the two lashonot, the two ways of explaining what Raya Mehemna, right, the faithful shepherd, means. That one, he is faithful himself, and second, well, first, that he is a shepherd of faith, that he shepherds us in our faith, and second, that he is faithful in the fact that there's an itpashtuta, the Moshe, there's an echo of the soul, of a reflection of the soul of Moshe in every generation.
Right.
Machzikin et ha'emunah de Israel, who strengthen the emunah of Israel. Uchamo Mordechai.
Machzik is also like to hold.
Yeah, but here, I guess I should have said machazekin. I think it means cause to strengthen. Yeah, I should have said mechazekim. The Israel, uchamo Mordechai, Moshe shebadoro shechizak et emunatam shel Israel. Like we see with Mordechai, who was Moses in his own generation, who strengthened the faith of Israel, la'amod chazak belimud haTorah v'kiyum hamitzvot, to stand strongly in learning the Torah and keeping the mitzvot. V'la'acharei zeh mevayer hapirush b'katit lamod, and finally, he after that he explains what it means that it is crushed for light. Shebapasuk V'Atah Tetzaveh shemedaber lechora b'Moshe atzmo. Right? That in the pasuk itself, it appears that it's talking about Moses himself. Ki zeh sheMoshe megale bechinat hamaor de Israel etzem haneshama. Right? So this light that it's talking about is Moses himself, because he is an aspect of the light that is in Israel, that which is so the tzaddik is the etzem haneshama, right? So just as we ourselves have a neshama, right, that gives us the capacity to to be and to be spiritual in a similar way that tzaddik of the generation is like a neshama to Klal Yisrael. Hu be'ikar al yedei itpashtuta delay shebizman hagalud. And that is most importantly through the echoes of him through the time of the exile, katit, which is what it means when it says crushed, she'orero be'Israel koach hamesirut nefesh shelahem, that he awakens within Israel the capacity of self-sacrifice and martyrdom in them, shal yedei zehu ikar gilui etzem haneshama, that through this is the most important and fundamental aspect of the revelation of the soul, ma'or, right? Like we said earlier, the fact that somebody is willing to give up their lives shows that they are in fact completely willing to, their material self is completely nullified to their spirituality, because otherwise they wouldn't be willing to die.
Right. So there's something. I mean, that is equivalent to being crushed.
Right. That is, yeah. That's what it means when it says crushed. Right. It's talking about Mesirut Nefesh. Right. Metzaref lahav, and we need to understand the Lefi biur hanal, that according to this explanation that we said, ha'inyan de katit lamaor shayech V'Atah Tetzaveh et bnei Israel, that when it says crushed to be light, it has a relationship with and you shall connect the children of Israel. In that Moses and the echoes of him that are in each generation, that they bind and connect et Israel im or ein sof, Israel with the infinite light, Baruch Hu. ובהכתוב נאמר כתית למאור בהמשך לויקחו אליך שמן זית זך. And in the passage itself, in the verse, it says crushed so that it would be light. After it says, and they will take to you pure olive oil. The inyan v'yikhu alecha, that when it says they will take to you, she'Israel meviyin shemen l'Moshe, that Israel would bring the oil to Moses, hu she'Israel mosifin tospot or b'Moshe, kemuva la'ayel saif bet mehamamar, in that it causes there to be an additional light in Moses that comes from the fact that Israel brings the shemen to him, as is explained in the whatchamacallit itself.
Yeah, that's what we covered. I think there it might be covering we spoke about the Israel as the legs of Moses. Yeah, correct. Okay, text, all you. והנה הכתוב, וקיבל היהודים את אשר החלו לעשות מדבר, מדבר בפשטות, בהזמן שלאחרי הנס דפורים. And here it is written, and the Jews and Israel, the Jews accepted what they started to do, or what they started to talk about simply.
So if you remember, right, we were talking about it says v'kivlu v'kimru. No.
No.
Right. So it's talking about how it says in the Megillah, in the book of Esther, it says v'kimu v'kiblu, that they kept and they accepted. And Chazal explained that kimu ma shekiblu kvar, that now at the time of Mordechai, that was when Israel truly kept that which they received at Mount Sinai.
Okay, so questions here. Who are the Jews that he's referencing here, at what time? And also, Lasot started speaking.
No, Lasot medaber b'pashtut. So he's saying when. So he's talking. He's talking. He's quoting from Megillat Esther, right? That the Jews accepted that which they started to do at Sinai.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, we're getting spammers. He's saying when it talks about that, it appears, you would think that it's talking about what happened after, right? In the book of Esther, it appears that it's talking after there was the miracle, which was that things were turned over on Haman, and Haman himself was killed, and all that, right? But he's going to say, no, that's this may be the simple reading of it, but it's possible to say otherwise.
Got it. Okay. V'yesh lomar. What is that?
מה שכתוב.
דמה שכתוב במאמר, the pirush. So we can say that what was written simply in the article. וקיבל היהודים את אשר החלו לעשות הוא שבימי אחשוורוש קיבלו מה שהחלו במתן תורה. What we said about what they started to do in the times of Achashverosh, what they received in the giving of the Torah. הוא גם לפי פשטות הכתוב, שקובל גו היה לאחרי הנס.
וקבל גומר היה לאחרי הנס. That when it talks about this, it was after the miracle.
Okay, got it. Okay, now it dropped. Okay, so they started it after the miracle. Okay.
Right.
ואף על פי זה, בזמן שימי אחשוורוש קיבלו מה שהחלו במתן תורה, שני עניינים. But, however, or
al pize, and in this manner. Al pize, so he's explaining the simple thing, right, which I'm guessing he's later going to change. But now he's just explaining, okay, this is the simple way of understanding.
Got it. Okay. הקבלה שהייתה בזמן הגזירה, על ידי המסירות נפש שלהם, כמפורט במאמר. So the receiving that was in the times of the decree, by the fact that they gave themselves up, like we elaborated before, והקבלה שהייתה לאחרי הנס דפורים, and the receiving that happened after the miracle itself, שהיא ניהלת יותר גם מהקבלה בזמן הגזירה. That the receiving or the doing after the decree or after the miracle is actually bigger, is more higher than just doing it during the decree. He's going to explain why that is. ויש לומר שעד זה,
על דרך זה,
שעל דרך זה הוא בנוגע כתית למאור. And we can say that by this, this refers to the katit lamol, what was written about the crushed to enlighten, to make light. שעל ידי העניין דקתית שבזמן הגלות מגיעים למאור. Explain.
So through the fact that there is this crushing, that there is this pain of galut, that is what allows us to come to the point of ma'or.
Got it. דשני עניינים בזה. What does he say? What does he mean by דשני עניינים בזה? Just like grammatically.
So he's saying that this splits up into two ways of being explained, right? So he's saying, okay, I'm gonna be explaining things in various ways. That doesn't mean that the first way isn't actually a way of understanding it.
Right.
But I'm giving you an additional way of understanding it. And he's done this several times through this, right? Mm-hmm. So for example, like with Raya Mehemna, right? He explains, there's one, you could say that Moses is the one who's mefarnes and zan emunah, right? So in one way, he's Raya Mehemna, he's the roe ha'emunah, in that he is zan umefarnes emunah, and the other one is that he is ne'eman, that his soul is present in every generation. So you see that that's two different ways of understanding how Moses is Raya Mehemna. So similarly, he's explaining things in multiple ways here.
Right, like so that's the idea of like the 70 faces for the Torah.
Yeah.
And also, isn't there a term? Maybe it's not 100% what is happening here, but the term of something about like the remiz doesn't take away from the pshat, or the pshat has to be.
Ein hamikra yotze midei pishuto is a rule we have that no matter how many different ways of explaining something you have, the fact is that the pshat, and the pshat doesn't necessarily mean the way a child reads it. The pshat means how an intelligent person reads it in context, but everything has a pshat level, right? Mm-hmm. So when it talks about, for example, the Bnei Elohim who in Genesis who take the Bnei Adam, right? They take the Banot Bnei Adam, they take the daughters of people. So there's a Pashut Pshat of it, which is, it's talking about the important, like the princely people who were taking the daughters of the simple folks against their will. That's on a pshat level. And on other levels, right, there's this idea of there were fallen spiritual beings that were doing such things, right? And they don't exclude each other.
Right.
Right? Just because you say one doesn't mean that the other isn't what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. כשישראל נמצאים במצב של כתית מצד זה, when Israel is in this state of being crushed, שישנם גזירות על קיום התורה ומצוות, כמו שהיה בזמן אמירת המאמר, when they are in this state, when there are decrees against making the Torah and the mitzvot, ועל ידי זה מגיעים למאור על ידי המסירות נפש שלהם. By this, they get to enlighten something by their giving themselves up.
Right. That the fact that they're willing to have this sort of mesirat nefesh also leads, just like you crush olives to make oil so that there will be light, in a similar manner, galut and suffering, right, causes there to be a spiritual enlightening of sorts.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, kind of like the image that comes up to mind. I don't know how to like elaborate deep in this, but like if you think about a flashlight or any other source of light that you shine on a wall, for example, it comes out of a source of light. It's, something that it is hard to look at directly. Then it comes out and it spends time or space in this ambiguous space, and then it hits the wall, and at the wall it actually becomes it lights whatever it is on the wall, or the wall itself. But so there's like these three things. There's the source, there's this ambiguous, there's this amorphous space, and then there's the wall.
Yeah, actually Chassidut talks about this in explaining how God relates to the world, or Ein Sof, right? So there is or Ein Sof as it exists in Hama'atzil Ba'atzmut Ba'umahut, right? Which is like or Hashemesh Beshemesh, right? Like the light of the sun while it is still in the sun. And then there is or as it is Matzil, right? That as it is actually basically traveling, right, as it exists. And then there's the or as it is reflected in the place where it gets, right?
Right.
And so there are various bechinot in this. And so this is explained in a lot of ways.
ועוד עניין בכתית למאור, and another thing about how the crushing leads to the light, שגם כשישראל נמצאים במצב של הרחבה בגשמיות וגם הרחבה ברוחניות, when Israel is in this state of widening or deepening, a widening in terms of the physicality, or so maybe like
both. He says הרחבה בגשמיות וגם הרחבה ברוחניות, right? So this language of min hametzer karati ka va'anani b'marchav ka, right? So I called to God when I was in the straits, when I was in Mitzrayim, right? But then it says you shall come to Eretz Harachava, right? It talks about Mitzrayim is that place of narrowness. Right. Egypt is the place of narrowness, whereas Israel is a place of wideness, of expansiveness.
What would they say about Texas?
Yeah.
Okay, so expensiveness in terms of like the physicality, but also spirituality.
Yeah, and he says even when there is harchava, right? When just through the fact that we are in galut, he's going to explain.
Right. אלא שנמצאים בגלות ועד ואם
ועל דרך המצב, so like what we're talking about, שהיה לאחרי הנס בפורים, right? So there, like after the miracle of Purim, the Jews were living in Paras, they were still living in Persia, but they things were very well for them, right?
של היהודים הייתה אורה ושמחה וששון ויקר, בפשטות וגם ברוחניות. So they had a lot of aura is that's the dance, but joy and so the wealth as well. Yeah. But both is simply and also in terms of spirituality. ויתרה מזה שגם בית אמן ניתן לאסתר, שהיה אז גם המעלה דאפחה.
דאתהפכה. Ithavcha is
or the flipped.
Yeah, because the house of Haman was given to Esther, right? So you see that it was even at the point where the evil was being turned to good.
Yeah. אלא שאחתי עבדי אחשוורוש ענן.
So that yet we are still servants of Achashverosh.
הם שבורים ונתקעים כתית מזה שהם בגלות.
So even though it appears everything was so good, just the fact that they were still in Galut means that they were still in a matzav of katit.
Right, they were still broken and depressed or suppressed or מזה שהם בגלות. ועל ידי הכתית ישראל, מה שנמצאים בגלות מגיעים להמאור. And by this crushing of Israel, which is in exile, you get to this light. והעניין הוא, דזה שישראל הם שבורים מזה שהם בגלות, גם כשיש להם הרחבה בגשמיות וברוחניות. So the thing is that even in Israel.
Yeah, so let's say you're living, let's say in the United States, and everything's beautiful and great, right? And you think to yourself, everything's beautiful and great, but there's an inyan of katit there, right? Why?
הוא כי רצונו האמיתי של כל אחד מישראל הוא שיהיה גילוי אלוקות. עד שזה גילוי אלוקות נוגע לעצם מציאותו. So the true will or desire of each one of Israel is that there will be the revelation of godliness. And that this revelation is part of the essential nature of each Jew. ולכן זה שבזמן הגלות אין מאיר גילוי אלוקות כמו שהיה בזמן הבית. And because of that during exile there is no godliness, revelation of godliness like it was when there was a temple in the land. ובפרט כשמתבונן בזה שהרז"ל שאמרו רז"ל חכמינו.
רבותינו זכרונם לברכה.
כל מי שלא נבנה בית המקדש בימיו, הוא זה כאילו נחרב בימיו.
הרי זה
and specifically what our sages said that at every second where at the time when the temple is not built, it is if it's being destroyed at this moment.
So you shouldn't be thinking that, if I were like, if the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, like if I was living at that time, like maybe it wouldn't have been destroyed. Like it's not that I am the one who's causing it. It's, and Razal, the Chachamim say no. You have to realize that the reason it hasn't been built in our generation is that that if we were alive when the Beit HaMikdash was there, it would have been destroyed because of us.
Right. הנה מזה עצמו, izher in ganzen Tzitreiles getit.
Yeah, I don't exactly know the is means is, means he, in ganzen completely, zutreistel, and I'm guessing that means katit, completely crushed.
Islet.
Yeah.
קטית. וגם כשהוא בדרגה נעלית ביותר, שמאיר אצלו גילוי, and even when it's high, at a high state, where the light,
Gilui elokut.
there is that revelation of godliness, בדוגמת הגילוי שהיה בזמן הבית, like in the times of the temple, when the temple was existed,
מכל
מקום, מזה שבכללות העולם אין מאיר הגילוי, מוכח שגם הגילוי שמאיר אצלו הוא גילוי מוגבל.
Right? So even if somebody is such a holy person that for him it's as if there's a clear revelation of godliness, right? The fact that it's not something that is throughout the entire world, it shows that that's still a gilui mugbal, that is still a finite revelation of godliness. Because if there was a complete revelation of godliness, it would be infinite and would be reflected in all of creation.
וכשמאיר גילוי אור אינסוף, הבלתי גמור,
I don't remember what that Roshei Tevot is. Habli gvul. Sorry.
הבלי גבול. כשמאיר גילוי אור אינסוף, הבלי גבול, הגילוי הוא בכל מקום. So when the light of the Ein Sof, the never ending, that revelation is everywhere, כשישנו מקום אחד, אפילו פינה נידחת, and when there is a single place, even in the corner, שאין מאיר שם גילוי אלוקות, so even if there is a place like that where that light doesn't shine, there is no revelation of godliness, הוא מפני שהגילוי, גם במקום שהוא מאיר, הוא גילוי מוגבל.
Right. So if the revelation of godliness does not stretch even to the furthest corners of the world, that tells you that this is a gilui mugbal, that this is a finite revelation of God, not an infinite one.
וזהו מה שמובא במאמר אדמו"ר הזקן, דהייתא בתיקונים, שאפילו אם היה צדיק אחד חוזר בתשובה שלמה בדורו, היה בא משיח. So this is what it says in the previous rabbis.
No, this is the Alter Rebbe. This is the first Chabad.
The Alter Rebbe?
Yeah.
Okay. The Alter Rebbe, when he says that if one tzaddik would have, one righteous person would come back or would do tshuva,
would repent,
then the Mashiach would come, the Messiah would come. כי על ידי תשובה שלמה ממשיכים גילוי אור אינסוף הבלתי נגמר, וגילוי זה הוא בכל מקום. Because by tshuva, by complete tshuva, the light, the infinite, never-ending light goes, shines and goes everywhere.
Right.
ומזה שאין מאיר אצלו גילוי עצמות אור אינסוף, הוא נשבר ונתקע. עצמות.
Yeah, the essence of Or Ein Sof.
הוא נשבר ונתקע כתית.
Yeah.
So, מזה when there is no light like that,
just the fact that means that it's not a complete gilui of Atzmut Ein Sof, right? Just because that itself implies that there is an inyan of katit. There's a brokenness there.
ועל דרך הידוע, שחולה בגימטריה מ"ת,
So Memtet is 49, right? Is we talk about the 49 Sharei Tumah, right? The 49th level of impurity. So Choleh, which means sick person, right, has a gematria of Memtet, of 49.
Okay. שגם כשמשיג מ"ת שערי בינה, אלא שחסר לו שער הנון, הוא חולה.
So this is talking about, the 49 gates of Bina, right? So even if somebody reaches the 49th level of understanding, in the fact that he has not reached the 50th noon, he's considered sick. He's considered somebody who's weakened.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to take this?
What?
Do you want to take this next?
Okay. V'yadua ma shekatuv hatzemach tzedek, and it's known what was taught by the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek. Shehaya nishma memorenu v'Rabbeinu nishmato Eden, that we heard from our teacher, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. He said that we heard from, so the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe, said that he heard from the Admor Hazaken, from his grandfather, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe. Ich will ze gar nicht, ich will nicht den Gan Eden, ich will nicht den Olam Haba.
We should do a just chatting where everybody just tries to talk Yiddish.
Yeah.
Are you just trying to?
Ich will mir nicht as dich allen. I have no clue what any of that means, but thank God we can look up the English. Let me go look up the English.
You can just also throw this into Translate.
Google Translate doesn't do very well with rabbinic. Rabbinic thing. Let's see. What did the Tzemach Tzedek say? Part 8, part 9.
That's not working.
I'm not sure. I mean, I could share it, but we would hear from our teacher and master of Blessed Mary, I do not want anything. I do not want your Gan Eden. I don't want your world to come. I want nothing else but you yourself. So the Alter Rebbe, apparently, when he would pray, he would say, I don't want Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, and I don't want the world to come. I want nothing but God himself.
Mm-hmm.
And through the fact that he heard such things from the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Pirush Haya Nishma Hu Shezeh Haya Lo Rak Bezmanim Miyuchadim Ela Shezeh Haya Devar Ragil. That when we say that, when it says that he heard this from him, it was something that he would regularly say. Ubifrat la'acharei shenitparsem ze al yedei hatzemach tzedek, and especially since the Tzemach Tzedek thought that he should publicize this. Nitan hakoach lekol echad ve'echad me'Israel she'ikar retzono yihyeh gilui ha'atzmut. Therefore, a certain potential was given to all of Israel, so that his essential nature would want only the revelation of God's essence itself. Va'ad kedei kach, and so much so, keshe'ein me'ir gilui zeh, that when there is not this sort of revelation, Umikol sheken, and how much more so? Bezman hagalut, at a time of exile. She'ein meir afilu hagilui or shahaya bezman habayit. That there isn't the revelation of light that existed at the time of the temple. Hu b'matzav dekatit, that he is a person who is in a situation of being crushed. Umevakesh shlosha pa'amim b'chol yom, and he asks 3 times every day, o yoter, or even more so. V'tachazena einenu b'shuvcha letzion berachamim, like is in the Shemon Esrei, it's in the Amidah, and our eyes should see your return to Zion in mercy. She'az yihyeh gilui alakut ad va'ed legilui ha'atzmut. That there should be an eternal revelation of godliness that is va'ad legilui ha'atzmut, and that it would be such a revelation that it would be a revelation of the essence of God Himself. V'zehu katit lamaor, and that is what it means when it says that crushed to be light. She'al yedei ha'inyan dekatit mizeh shenimtzaim begalut magi'in lahamaor, that through this aspect of crushingness, being crushed, through this that they are being found at a time of exile, they reach that being light. Kizeh sheharatzon dechol echad meIsrael hu gilui alakut. That the true will of each member of Israel is that there be a revelation of light, of godliness. Va'ad shezeh nogel etzem matziuto, and since that this reaches the very essence of his existence, shelachen hu nishbar nitka katit mizeh shebezman hagalut lo yesh gilui alakut. That he is pained, broken by this fact that we are in a situation where the existence of the revelation of godliness is not here. Hu mitzad etzem haneshama, that is from the very core of his soul. Me'or shebeneshama, the light that is in the soul. Shehitkashruta be'alakut hi hitkashrut atzmit, that connecting yourself with godliness is an essential connection that is made.
Right. I remember now that last week we spoke about how there is that part of the soul, or we said like etzem neshama, that is close, or like the inner faith that is closer to that revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm assuming is he gonna bring it down to, in terms of when he says giluya atzmut, when we yearn for that, what does that mean?
I mean, I think mostly he's trying to remind us that even when we are in a situation where things seem very good, there is a necessity to recognize the fact that even at the 49th level of Binah, you're still missing something there. It's not at the Gilui Elokut Nitzchi. It's still not good enough.
Yeah.
That we still have to yearn for a greater and more infinite revelation of godliness.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Weiter?
Weiter.
Okay. V'yesh lomar. And it's...
Is that the last one?
what do you mean, Yud? Is
Yeah.
Yud the last one? No,
Oh.
Yud Aleph.
I wasn't sure.
Yud Bet. We'll get to Yud Bet. So
Okay.
yeah, hopefully we'll be able to finish it. V'yesh lomar. And it's possible to say שבחינת המאור דהנשמה המתגלית על ידי העניין דקתית מזה שנמצאים בגלות. And it's possible to say that this aspect of the light that is in the soul that is being revealed through being crushed by this fact that we find ourselves in the exile. היא נעלית יותר מבחינת המאור דהנשמה שמתגלית על ידי מסירות נפש. This is even greater than that revelation of godliness that is through martyrdom and self-sacrifice. והעניין הוא, and the explanation of this is, the מהטעמים על זה שבמתן תורה הייתה רק ההתחלה. That from the reasoning that at the time of the giving of the Torah at Sinai, this was a beginning. החלו לעשות. They began to do. ובימי אחשוורוש הייתה הקבלה. And during the time of Achashverosh was the actual accepting the Kibel HaYehudim, who, like it says, that the Jews accepted. Ki zeh shehikdimu na'aseh lenishma b'matan Torah haya mipnei shekapa alehem har gigit. So, as the Midrash says, the reason why the Jews said we will do and we will listen is because that they hadn't heard yet, but God held the Mount Sinai over them like a chuppah, right? And he said, if you accept it, then yes. If not, then I will bury you here. Gilui milamala, that this is a revelation from above. Ubeyemei Achashverosh hayta hakabala mitzad et atzma. But during the time of Achashverosh, when it wasn't God revealing himself, but that they were causing this acceptance of godliness from their own selves. V'yesh lomar sheha'amunah de'Yisrael mitzad zeh shehaneshama shelamala ro'eh elokut, right? Like we said last time, we were talking about this idea of being able to see godliness, right? So that there's a faith in that is ingrained in the soul of a Jew, that his soul is able to see in some way mazal chazi, right? That it is able, that the soul is able to see a spiritual power of godliness that that physically we can't see. Emunah shemitzad siba, right? That is a faith that has a reason for it. Hu al derech shehikdimu naaseh lenishma b'matan Torah mitzad hagilui delamala. Then that is still, because Mesirit Nefesh, we said, the fact that a person is willing to die, right? That comes from the fact that their soul has a capacity to see the spiritual worth of it, and that is still something that has a reason to it. וזה שבימי אחשוורוש הייתה הקבלה מצד עצמם, right? But when there is no reason for it, right? The person is living in a good and happy time, right? He's got everything that he needs, right? But still, who כי אז נתגלה ההתקשרות באלוקות שמצד עצם הנשמה. The fact that even though everything's fine and he doesn't need for anything, yet he still yearns for godliness, that shows a an essential internal connection to godliness. Hitkashrut atzmit shemitzad etzem metziutam. That this is a essential connection that comes from the very essence of their existence. Ubepartiut yoter yesh lomar, and in detail, in greater detail, we can say, shegam begilu yatzem haneshama, that also regarding the revelation of the essence of the soul, yeshnam dugmat shnei inyanim hanal, that there exists an example of these two aspects that we discussed. The gilui etzem haneshama be'inyan hamesirut nefesh, that when we talk about the revelation of the soul through martyrdom and self-sacrifice, yesh lomar, it's possible to say shebenoga nogea lekochot hagiluyim hu kamo davar nosaf, that when we say that when it comes to the potential of revelation, that is like something that is extra, that's not essential to it. Ukamo sheroim bepoel bekama anashim, like we see in the world regarding many people, shebihiotam b'makom shahayu sham gezerot al Torah u'mitzvot, that when they live in a state of when there were harsh decrees against those who kept the Torah and mitzvot, haya lahem mesirut nefesh bepoel meshach kama v'kama shanim. We see that for many years they were willing to sacrifice in order to keep Torah and mitzvot. V'sheba'u achar כך lemedinot she'efshar la'asok b'Torah mitzvot mitoch harchava. But once they were able to come to countries where there were not, where it was possible to keep the Torah and mitzvot easily, ein nikar bahem kol kach hamesirut nefesh shahaya lahem mikodem. We don't see that they're so actively desiring and willing to sacrifice in order to keep the Torah and mitzvot.
So is that what he's saying is the extra, is the additional thing?
So he's saying that, yeah, there's like the fact, we see that some people, right, if they have to, like, it's a time when there are harsh edicts and the government says, no, you can't keep the Torah, then they're actually willing to suffer in order to keep the Torah.
Yeah.
But then they come to a place where it's easy, and for them it's not such an important thing, right? That this is something else. The capacity to keep the Torah even when nobody is trying to stop you, right? That itself has an extra type of light to it. That they were willing to sacrifice for many and many years in order to keep the mitzvah. Because then was exposed the essence of their soul, that is even greater than the potential of revelation. I'm not exactly sure what he's saying. 55. Okay, so apparently this is explained somewhere else. I am not exactly sure what he means by בכוחות הגילויים עצמם. דזה שעצם הנשמה היא העצם גם בכוחות הגילויים, כנ"ל. סעיף ה' הוא שעצם הנשמה הוא העצם שלהם, ואין זה שייך לעניינים של כוחות הגילויים עצמם, להציעור שלהם. Okay, I think this is related actually to what you were saying before about the light as it exists in the sun and as it's emanating from the sun and as it interacts with that which it is shining upon, right? He seems to be making a differentiation in that certain people are able to withstand, to keep Torah and mitzvot when their life is at stake and there's a shmad and there are edicts against them, right? That comes from the etzem haneshama. But in the capacity to keep Torah and mitzvot, even when there's nobody telling you that you can't, that's not mesirut nefesh. That is a form of revelation of godliness, which is
not part of their essence.
Yeah.
Okay. So like the light that shines on something, that shyness is not part of whatever it is that's being shown. It's the source.
והגילוי לעצם הנשמה בזה שהוא נשבר ונתקע מזה שהוא נמצא בגלות, הוא שגם כוחות הגילויים שלו, הציעור לכוחות הגילויים, הם כמו חד עם העצם. And when a person is able to have this desire for godliness, that he feels broken in the fact that godliness is not completely revealed, it shows that he has a special capacity in that the revelation of godliness is equivalent to that which is in his essence, right? So somebody who keeps the Torah berachava, right? And because he has a capacity to feel pain over the fact that it is not a complete revelation of godliness. And so this causes him to have a light shine from him. That shows a unified nature of both the essence of his soul and the revelation of his soul.
Is that kind of like a mirror? No. I'm trying to think about, like, if we're thinking about the bitul or something with a reflection.
Right. So in essence, he is one with Hama'atzil, right? The fact that he becomes like the sun itself, right? Because the light as it exists in him is the same as the light that exists when it's in the sun itself.
Yeah, what's that? Is it in Karate Kid, or is it just like it's like become the? It's just a karate kind of like what is it like? Become the. I don't know what it is. You become the hawk or whatever it is, the animal.
Yeah.
Okay.
ויש לומר, and it's possible to say, דזה שעצם הנשמה והציור והכוחות הם דוגמת שני עניינים, that the essence of the soul and the form of its potentialities are examples of two things. הוא לפי שגם עצם הנשמה היא מוגדרת בגדר. That's because the essence of the soul is something that is bound. והגדר שלו היא למעלה מהציור והכוחות. But that boundary is still way beyond the shape of the potentialities of the powers. Aval mitzad etzem haneshama. But when we talk about this from the aspect of the essence of the neshama, kamo shehi mushreshet b'ha'atzmut, the way that it is rooted in the essential nature of God, hapshitut dehaneshama v'hatziur dehakochot shela hem kulachad. The expression of the soul and the form of the powers are all one. So mitzad ha'emet, all of these things are in fact all one, but it appears to us that they are not.
Mm-hmm.
But when there is a revelation of godliness, then the two match. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think that I can't. Doesn't. I don't think that I caught that yet, but
okay. I mean, and this is. I mean, if I am understanding it correctly, this is something I did not understand when I learned this before. And I'm not sure I'm explaining it well. And through this, it is possible to say the bechinat ha'meor, the haneshama shemitgalet al yedei mesirat nefesh, hi etzem haneshama kemo shehi mugderet be'inyan ha'pishtut shelamala mitziur ha'dekochot. So when we talk about the aspect of the light of the soul as it is revealed through self-sacrifice, it is the essential nature of the soul as it is bound in the expression which is beyond the form of its potentialities. ובחינת המאור דהנשמה שמתגלית על ידי העניין דקתית מזה שנמצאים בגלות הוא גילוי עצם הנשמה כמו שהיא מושרשת בעצמות. But this aspect of the revelation of the soul through the fact that he feels crushed by the fact that he is found to be in exile, that is a revelation of the essential nature of the soul as it is rooted in the essence of God.
Right. So it's something like, when you're crushed, it shows your true character is a simplified version.
Right. But he's saying that when you are crushed through material or external sources, through Mesirut Nefesh, that is or Gilui, that is a Gilui or that is Mugderet, that is bound and finite. But when you feel the pain of Shkinta Bagaluta, when you feel the pain of God in exile, that is a connection of the essence of your soul with God Himself.
Okay.
Was that clear?
It's clear, but wasn't like is the Jews and and that with Achashverosh, didn't they had both Mesilut Nefesh and it was in Galut?
So they had. So that's what he's saying. That's what he means. Hayta lo leYehudim ora v'simcha v'sason beikar, right? He's saying that so there is the Gilui Elokut Mugderet, which existed among the Jews before the Nes, right? Before there was the miracle, and so they were in a time of harsh decrees, and they were in a physical state of katit.
Right.
But when after the miracle, everything was great, and they were in a state of harchava, right? That everything was beautiful, and yet they still had this yearning for a greater revelation, right? That is a connection with the essential nature of God, which is bilti gvul.
That is why Purim is. You mentioned how that's important. Like even
it's greater. Yeah, it's greater than Yom HaKippurim, right? Yom HaKippurim, Yom Kippurim, right? Because when you fast and you pray and you on Shabbaton, right? You no malacha, asur bet sicha bet neilat sandal, right? You are not even allowed to wear leather shoes, right? So you become like a soul, right? You escape from this world. That's Kippurim.
Yeah.
But Purim, when you eat and you drink and you delight in God in this physical world, that is even a higher light.
Why then don't we have some a few more Purim then? If that is such a great state, why don't we just advocate for let's do more celebrations like that?
Okay, so what's how do you summarize every Jewish holiday? What's the summary of every Jewish holiday? They tried to kill us.
Yeah.
They failed.
Short summary, okay, but
they failed. Let's eat, right? You've never heard this before, right?
I heard it now. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, they tried to kill us. They failed. Let's eat. And honestly, this is even like Shabbat, right? We make Kiddush Zecher Letziat Mitzrayim. What does that mean? Kiddush Zecher Letziat Mitzrayim, right? So Kiddush is this celebration, right? So you have to view it from both sides, right? In one sense, Yom Kippurim, right, is Shabbat Shabbaton. It's the Sabbath of Sabbaths, right?
Mm-hmm.
On another sense, there's the cyclical nature of it, and that's why you have Rosh Hashanah, and then you have Yom HaKippurim, and then you have Sukkot and Simchat Torah, right? And Shmini Atzeret, which is actually like I don't know if you were listening last night. We were talking about Yom HaShmini, right? Mm-hmm. The 8th day, right? So we do. I mean, ultimately, as Jews, we're not Gnostics. We're not trying to escape this world. We're trying to bring holiness into the world.
Besimcha.
Besimcha, yeah.
Okay.
Yud Aleph. It's all you.
Let's do it. This one I'm gonna crush.
Okay.
ויש לקשר את זה עם המבואר במאמר, and we can connect this with what we explained before, בפי הכתוב, ואתה תצווה את בני ישראל ויקחו אליך שמן זית גומר. So like we spoke about before, where in the verse it says, and you shall bind or command the Israel, and they will bring to you the oil, the refined olive oil. תלה אחרי שמשה יצווה ויקשר את בני ישראל, that after Moshe would bind the Israel, אזי יביאו לישראל למשה שמן זית גומר. Then that is by them bringing him the olive oil. שישראל על ידי עבודתם יוסיפו גילוי אור במדרגת משה. That Israel, by this work that they do, they extend or they add to the light that is given to Moses. That Moses has. ויש לומר מהביאורים בזה בעבודת האדם. And we can say, to clarify, that this is the purpose of the work that man does. זה שמשה מצווה ומקשר את בני ישראל, שהוא זן ומפרנס את האמונה. זה שמשה מצווה ומקשר את בני ישראל, so that Moses, when he binds Israel,
he is doing it, that he is feeding and providing emunah to Israel.
Okay, so let's dwell on this for a second because this seems important, right? So the act of binding people together,
binding people to God,
binding mitzaveh mekasher Israel together to God.
Yeah, is
the same as the act of nourishing their faith.
He connects them. Moses connects us to God through providing for us faith in God.
Right, that's the idea. Each mitzvah is a small connection to God. It's like you plug yourself to God.
Beyond, I mean, so like he talked about, like when you talk about zanu mafarnes, when you talk about food, right? When you eat something, it becomes a part of you. So Moses you listen to a rabbi, he teaches you Torah. The Torah becomes a part of you, right? So he's feeding your faith.
Yeah. שהאמונה תהיה נוסף על כמו שהיא מצד הגילויים דהנשמה. מצד זה שהנשמה שלמעלה רואה אלוקות, גם מצד עצם הנשמה. שהאמונה תהיה נוסף על כמו שהיא מצד הגילויים דהנשמה. That the faith should be like the revelation of the soul, or of the essence of the soul. So is he saying that the faith?
So he's saying. So we talked about how there's the difference between the gilui of Mesirut Nefesh, right? So we talked about the difference between these two things of emunah with Mesirut Nefesh and emunah b'harchava, right? That when you keep the Torah and mitzvot b'Mesirut Nefesh, it doesn't necessarily mean that you keep the Torah and mitzvot b'harchava. But Moses causes that you keep the Torah and mitzvot, not just at a time of Mesirut Nefesh, right? but also during a time of harchava.
Yeah. אוקיי, ויש לומר, דזהו
מה שכתוב.
מה שכתוב, ואתה תצווה את בני ישראל, דלשון, ואתה תצווה את בני ישראל.
משמע.
משמע שמשה מצווה, מקשר ומחבר את בני ישראל עצמם, כי מצד עצם הנשמה, כל ישראל הם אחד. So I think he makes a connection here to what we spoke about when things become one, when there is this revelation. That is also equivalent to how when...
So he's saying, Ata Tetzaveh et Bnei Israel, he's not just connecting Bnei Israel to godliness, but to themselves.
Right,
right?
The soul is one.
Yeah.
ועל ידי העבודה בישראל, לאחרי שנמשך בישראל גילוי עצם הנשמה על ידי משה, and by the work that Israel will do after this unification that Moses leads to, שגם הכוחות הגלויים שלהם, הציור הכוחות, that even the forces, the revelation, what did you call it? The creation.
The form of the potentialities, I call it.
The form of the potentialities. That their forms of potentiality, יהיו מתאימים לעצם הנשמה, will fit or will be like the essence of the soul. על ידי זה נעשה יתרון והוספה מבחינת עצם הנשמה, שנמשכה ונתגלתה בהם על ידי משה ויקחו אליך, כי על ידי זה מתגלה בה שורשה אמיתי, כמו שהיא מושרשת בעצמות. אם מתאים לעצם הנשמה, זה נעשה יתרון מבחינת עצם הנשמה.
I'm not sure if I can explain this correctly, but what he's saying, I believe he's saying, is that by making Israel more whole in their, more whole in the revelation of godliness in their lives, they are also returning a greater revelation in the life of Moses, and that's what it means when it says "Vayikhu alecha," right? That it's fractal, right? We keep on talking about the etzem haneshama and gilui. Right? We talk about the light as it is in its essence and the light as it is in its expression. And in each case, right, what we want is that the light in its expression be reflective of the light in its essence. And this fractally reveals itself in God and the revelation of godliness, and in our soul and the revelation of our soul, and in Moses and Israel, because like he explained earlier, Moses is like the soul of Israel.
Right, so when they reflect, when Israel is one and is unified, then they better reflect the soul or the essence of the soul or the
which is Moses, right? And it's reciprocal and fractal, and it's all beautiful.
Yeah. ולהעיר שעל ידי זה נתווסף גם באחדות ישראל. And we can comment here that by this we add to the unification of Israel, the oneness of Israel. שהאחדות בישראל על ידי עצם הנשמה שמתגלית בהם, that the unification of Israel by the essence of the soul that is revealed in them, היא כמו דבר נוסף על מציאותם. Is like another thing
that's beyond. So this connection, it's an emergent property of Israel to be unified as Israel, right? You have each individual member of Israel,
right,
but you have an emergent unification of Israel.
So the exhibit phenomena that wouldn't exist when they're separated.
Yep.
ולכן, I'm trying to think of a joke here. Something like you're full of gas, or you're only hydrogen, or I don't know. Anyway,
we're all atomized individuals.
Yeah. ולכן אחדות זו היא על ידי שעושים נפשם עיקר וגופם תפל. And by that, and לכן, and from here, how do you say?
Therefore,
the unification of Israel is by them making their soul the essential, the main thing, and their body the secondary thing. Tafel, right. Tafel is like it has no
Well, no, it's not that tafel is as if it's nothing, but tafel is it's the bread. It's not the meat of the sandwich.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how we use it. I know. I think there is I think maybe this is the same as like maim tfelim. Tfelim, I think, which is maim, like a water that has no taste or no minerals. So like purified water or filtered water or purified water.
In halacha, we talk a lot about ikar and tafel. Right, ikar is being that which is most important, and tafel is that which is secondary. Yeah.
ועל ידי גילוי עצם הנשמה, כמו שהיא מושרשת בעצמות, and by revealing this essence of the soul, like it is rooted in the essence of God, שעל ידי זה גם הציור לכוחות הגלויים הוא חד עם העצם. That by this, even the expression of the potentiality of the revelation is one with the essence. האחדות הישראל היא בכל העניינים שלהם, גם בעניינים השייכים לגוף. The unification of Israel is true for all matters, even the matters of the body. What does he mean by that?
So when you make the most essential part of you, your soul, and not each individual body, right? Then that creates a unification which expresses itself even in the body, right? That we are unified to the point because we realize that we are connected spiritually, then our material selves express that true nature of our spiritual unity.
אוקיי, ואף על פי זה יובן מה שנכתב במאמר, על ידי זה,
על ידי שישראל.
על ידי שישראל מוסיפים על ידי עבודתם מדרגת משה. So from here we can understand from what we said that by Israel by doing this work, adding to the heightness of Moses, על ידי זה יהיה נר תמיד, ולכאורה, by this there will be this eternal light that shines, I guess, throughout the ages. לכאורה זה שהנר דנשמה ner haya nishmat adam.
Ner havaya nishmat adam. So
Havaya.
this is a verse. The light of the Lord is the soul of man.
הוא
Right?
תמיד משווה בלי שינוי, הוא על ידי גילוי עצם הנשמה שנמשך על ידי משה ואתה תצווה.
So what he's trying to explain is that once you reveal the soul, since the soul is an expression of God, it's something eternal, right? Then this makes for the ner tamid, makes for a eternal light, not just a temporal one.
Right. I think this, what he's saying here, I think in business term you can think about is like the flywheel. You make the work to help Moses become that ner tamid, and that ner tamid is helping you make the work in the next generation, and then you do the work, and then you create that, and that's a flywheel, and that's kind of like a business. A flywheel is like you get customers, they buy something, you get more customers, you can market, you can advertise.
Yeah, there's a feedback loop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting. ולידי גילוי עצם הנשמה שנמשך על ידי משה ואתה תצווה, זה בעצם הנשמה, אין שייך שינוי. So there is no difference as this is happening in the soul. Like everything, the ner is continuing without any change. ובמאמר אומר שהעניין דנר תמיד הוא על ידי שישראל מוסיפים במדרגת משה ויקחו אליך.
So the fact that it becomes a ner tamid, the fact that it becomes because obviously the menorah isn't being lit forever. So what does it mean ner tamid? This is for the menorah that is lit at night, right? Saying that when they bring it to Moses, right, then it's an spiritual, eternal light that we are talking about.
Right. I think he says, what would he say? ויש לומר שבהגילוי דעצם הנשמה, בדרך מלמעלה למטה, על ידי ואתה תצווה, יש חילוק בין ערב ובוקר. We should say that by revealing the essence of the soul from above to below, by this bonding that Moses makes, that brings the differentiation between.
There's a difference between night and day when we talk about a gilui from above down, right?
Okay.
That Moses V'Atah Tetzaveh, right? When it comes from above down and we're looking up, then there appears to be a difference between light and dark, right? So the veil only exists from our side. It doesn't exist from God's side because God views things eternally. So the fact that we have night and day, right? This is something that exists from our perspective, not from God's perspective.
Right.
So when the V'Atah Tetzaveh comes from above down, then there is an aspect of time to it. But when it comes from below to above, from God's perspective, then it is eternal.
Okay. שעיקר הגילוי שלה הוא כשישנם ההיעלמות והסתרים ערב, that the essence of the revelation is that when there is hiddenness and that is equivalent to the night. שעל ידי זה מתעורר ומתגלה הכוח המסירות נפש, וכמו שנתבהר further down.
Lyle, before.
Before, Yud. Yud, safe Yud. That by this hiddenness at night, the awakens.
So before, when we talked about, we said in Mesirut Nefesh, right? When Moses was helping us to be willing to sacrifice for the Torah, right? Then you have an aspect of light and dark, day and night, right? But when we talk about after the Nes and after the revelation, when there's a awakening from below to above, the light is brought back to Moses. It's not Moses bringing the light to us, but us, Moses in a sense crushing, right, us into oil, but us bringing the oil back to Moses. Then it's ner tamid. It's something that is outside of time.
Yeah, I don't think I'm fully getting this.
Well, I mean, there's a different, there's a lot of background to this. So let's talk about the veil.
What's the Rashi on that?
Okay, so God is eternal, right? And it says Hester astir panai al hara, right? God is eternal, God is good, God is all things that are complete revelation, yet we live in darkness, right? There's the tzimtzum.
Yeah.
Right? So and that's what it means, right? That God created light and darkness, right? Good and evil, right? All of these things, they exist in the world. The Helen, right? The Hester, right? That's what the world is, right? It's Alma the Shikra. So there's a covering of God, right? In a sense, a livush, right? It's as if God encloses himself into something which hides, and in hiding reveals, right?
Right, like a name.
Right. But this is only from our perspective. From the perspective of below, we see light and dark, and we see good and evil, and we see night and day and the passage of time. But all of these things don't actually exist from God's perspective.
Right? This is the finite. This is how we can experience things.
So when the Gilui comes, milamala latata, it's coming from above down, right? That is a Gilui in which we see Erev Vavoker, we see night and day, and then the light, that light is not an eternal light. But when the Gilui comes, milamata lamala, when the light comes from us towards God, then it is in ner tamid. It is something that is eternal and outside of good and evil and time and creation and the Helam and the Hester. So he's not explaining all of this in this particular mimer.
Right.
This is an essential understanding of Hasidic concepts, that when something comes from above down, right, it is through hishtalshalut. It's through the tzimtzum.
Yeah.
But when it returns up, it's outside of hishtalshalut. It's outside of tzimtzum because it is coming towards God, and from God's perspective, there's only good.
There's only good. Okay, I don't think I fully understand the last part, even though I understand most of it. Like I don't. Like, so he sees it from his part.
God sees things from outside of time.
Right.
So
right.
from outside of time, there's no night and day.
Yeah.
Night and day are together one thing.
Right. So okay, yeah, that I understand.
Okay. So,
did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you? Do you know the book, The Case Against Reality? Have you heard about that?
I have not heard about that book. No.
It's just it's an interesting book. It's a guy named Donald Hoffman. Full title is Against Reality: How Evolution Hid the Truth from Our Eyes. Talking about how reality is more like a user interface, where you don't see things as they are. So when you see an apple and it's red or it's something, it's not because that's how apples look or the concept. It's just because that is just there's this fitness scale, and your reality is really just a fitness. It just makes you see things in a certain way. And kind of sounds familiar. Sounds similar.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there is this. Yeah.
ואף על פי זה יש לבאר, according to this we should clarify, שכתית למאור נאמר בכתוב בהמשך לויקחו אליך. גומר. That the crushing to become the being crushed in order to be the light comes after taking after it says they will take it to Moses. כי בכתית למאור נכלל גם זה שישראל הם שבורים ונתקעים מזה שהם בגלות. And that is because when it says crushed to make light, it includes the fact that Israel are broken and broken, has this brokenness because they are in exile. דעניין זה הוא על ידי עבודתם של ישראל, שגם הכוחות הגלויים שלהם יהיו מתאימים לעצם הנשמה. And this is the matter where by Israel's work that their potentiality of the revelation is fits the, or is similar to the essence of the soul. ובכי המאור דהנשמה שמתגלית על ידי זה היא עצם הנשמה.
בחינת המאור.
ובחינת המאור דהנשמה שמתגלית. And when talking about the light in the soul that is revealed, על ידי זה היא עצם הנשמה כמו שהיא מושרשת בעצמות. ולכן נאמר כתית למאור בהמשך לויקחו אליך. Go. Explain, please.
So he's repeating what we said before. So like it says v'yichu alecha shemen katit lamaor, right? So it says they shall bring to you shemen katit lamaor, meaning that there's an aspect of this katit that comes from themselves, which is that which we explained, that even when it's a matter of harchava, it's everything is good and well, they still have a sense of brokenness in the fact that they are in galut, in exile, and that causes a light that they bring to Moses. That's not from Moses, but it's from them.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. והנה, בפירוש בפשטות, ב"ואתה תצווה את בני ישראל ויקחו עליך גומר, הוא שמשה יצווה את בני ישראל, שיקחו עליך גומר. ומזה יובן גם בפנימיות העניינים. So when we talk in a simple manner explaining that you will connect the Bnei Israel and they will bring to you and that Moses is the one who's commanding and then they're bringing to Moses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the simple thing. Moses commands them and they bring the oil to Moses.
Yeah.
We can also understand it from an internal aspect. זה שמוצא משה מצווה ומקשר את בני ישראל הוא באופן שממשיך להם נתינת כוח גם על ויקחו עליך, right? That from a more symbolic and spiritual aspect, that he's connecting them in a manner which gives them a capacity to bring to Moses.
Right, that's a feedback loop.
Yeah. וכמו כן, הוא בנוגע למשה שבדורנו. And in a similar manner, we can speak about Moses as he is in our generation. כבוד קדושת מורנו חותנו אדמו"ר, so he's talking נשיא דורנו, he's talking about his predecessor. שעבודתו לעורר ולגלות את האמונה שבכל אחד מישראל. That what his work in the world was to awaken and reveal the faithfulness that is in each member of Israel. Shemitzad etzem haneshama, he beofen she'achat, like it is in the from the essence of their soul. שאחר כך יעבדו עבודתם בכוח עצמם. That it should be that eventually they would be able to do it in a manner that is from themselves. ועד שיהיו נר תמיד, so that it would be an eternal light. שאין שייך בו שינוי גם מצד כוחות הגילויים. So that there shouldn't be any difference when we talk about how it is being revealed, right? After it should be something that is in them, so that when it is being revealed, whether it's light or dark, it's time of galut, time of gezerah, time of nes, time of galut, and even to some extent, time of Mashiach, it should all be one. ועל ידי זה זוכים בקרוב ממש לגאולה האמיתית והשלמה, and through this we would merit soon, truly, the true and full redemption, שאז יהיה גילוי אלוקות גם מצד המטה, that then there will be a revelation of godliness even from below. ויהיה אז הבאת השמן והדלקת הנרות, and therefore we would have the bringing of the oil and lighting of the lights. ויקחו עליך שמן לעלות נר תמיד, that they would bring the oil so that there would be an eternal light. גם בגשמיות, also in material aspects. בבית המקדש השלישי, in the third temple, בגאולה האמיתית והשלמה על ידי משיח צדקנו בקרוב ממש. That through the coming of the Messiah, truly soon. And that was all of it. And we made it to the minute on the dot. Perfect time.
I feel like I just finished Shas.
In a sense, you did. In a sense, you did.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. There is a lot of context. I feel like he does. He repeats a lot of stuff.
He does.
That is only because this, it's the central thesis is just so juicy that repeating it, that you have to repeat it.
And you have to, like, the greatness of it is the fact that you read that one verse in multiple ways now, right? V'atah tetzaveh et bnei Yisrael v'yikhu alecha shemen katit lemaor, right? So
just on that,
la'alot ner tamid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can understand it b'pashtut, and you can understand a symbolic inner spiritual aspect of all of those words and why they are specifically in that order, and the questions that they elicit and the answers that you can give. And like, you just have to hold that in your mind as you're freezing up on me.
You froze right at the right moment. Hold it in your mind, and you froze like this. Okay. Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Are we gonna go? What am I doing?
I was thinking back to Tanya next week.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okay, I am going to end this stream.